Now, tonight on our front, we delve into the prospects of the newly launched Alliance for Revolutionary Change in the 2024 elections. This group promises a fresh style of leadership characterized by vision, competence, accountability, and also compassion. The Alliance aims to implement some transformative policies across all sectors, and I'm sure you know this started with the movement of change, Alan Chamanti's movement of change. So they are adopting the GTP, that's the Great Transformational Change of the movement of change, with a particular focus on making the private sector the primary engine of economic growth and fostering national unity. But will they succeed where other independent candidates have failed? We certainly will be exploring that question and be getting deeper into whether or not this is the biggest gathering of the most serious attempt by third parties to take over the reins of power in the Republic of Ghana. Will the Alliance for Change be the change Ghana has needed all this while? After this break, we shall be exploring with the leadership of the change. Now, you're welcome back to our front. My name is Raymond Dalka. Joining me now is a man many know with a full gospel ministry. Back today, he made an unusual appearance on the platform of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, Reverend Dr. Mensah. Reverend, you're welcome to our front.
Thank you very much, Raymond.
So, Reverend, let me be clear on this. I know that most of you, men of God, are shied away from active involvement in politics, but you mounted a platform ostensibly representing a group that is now part of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change. Walk me through how that happened.
Yeah, Raymond, the point is about 6 years, for 6 years now, I have been trumpeting and preaching on the need for an alternative force, a third force that will be an alternative to the NPP NDC duopoly, which hasn't really brought any significant change in our lives, and we have never made any significant progress as a nation. And so this has been going on and on for the past 6 years, and individual groups that are also exhausted about what seems to be going on contacted me and asked if perhaps I could rally people around. And that led to the founding of the Ghana First Coalition, which I happen to be the founder of the Ghana First Coalition, for which the National Interest Movement is a member under the leadership of Dr. Abu Sakara and all other members that constituted the Ghana First platform.
So there existed a group, forgive me, I need to understand this. There existed a group already you belong to, which you led, which is the Ghana First Coalition.
Coalition, right.
So what was it really about, this Ghana First Coalition?
The Ghana First Coalition is about preparing and mobilizing people to become a third force as an alternative to the NPP NDC duopoly.
Well, I see.
And that was the rationale behind. It was birthed in 2020, just before the 2020 elections. And we have been working behind the scenes to ensure that we could put together a mass movement that will begin to bring the necessary change we desire. So this is not belonging to a church issue. This has to do with a movement. It's not a partisan politics. It's a movement for change to drive the change we want to see as an alternative, as a third force. And that is exactly what today is a great joy to see the third force being given to. As a result of clarion call for the past 6 years, other patriotic Ghanaians have also joined the call for an alternative movement. And I believe today we are seeing, perhaps, the prayers being answered as a credible alternative to the duopoly.
Now, I know that many of you are coming from different backgrounds. Some are complete masses or socialists in nature. Some are from the center right, and they have pursued policies or believed in ideological leanings that are completely center right. I am not so sure where your ideological leaning is, but how is this amalgamation of different groups and different people with different thinking possible? Is this likely to last any proper system or fire that will be thrown at you in a partisan political system we find ourselves in?
The Alliance for Revolutionary Change it has structures that has been put in place to ensure that it throws its weight to the Alan Tremartin as the independent presidential candidate, because the messages are just about reform. Number one, a government of inclusivity, an inclusive government, a government of number two, of continuity, a government that will be based on meritocracy and not, popularism, a government that will be driven by national vision, for which we don't have. A government that will be driven also by national values. If I should ask you, you and I, what are the Ghanaian national values? We don't know. Before going to school and finish universities and what have you, but there are no common national values that seem to be driving our nation. Okay? So a government that will bring constitutional reform. And now all these amalgamation of these groups are fighting for these major agenda or major items or issues that together we believe we can bring the change that Ghanaians desire to see.
It's all interesting. The question I wanted to know is whether or not the differences will not break up this important gathering, whether or not you've agreed to mend differences or they are uniting factors. And I heard Mr. Tremartin say that the things that unite you are perhaps greater than the things that divide you. But this is still politics. Will this alliance really last throughout this election hearing period?
Indeed, vision is a common denominator that brings people together to fight a common cause, regardless of your individual differences. So if our vision is to become an alternative, credible movement, and that will be the thing that will draw everybody together. Indeed, the other groups also maintain their own identity. They have their own individual drive of what they want to do, and so nobody controls them. The umbrella organization of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change allows various groups to maintain their identity and what they want to do. And therefore, they will still pursue their individual activities and vision. But when it comes to the national cause of the country, we will all marshal forces together for one common cause to replace. The concept is to replace the duopoly. We have had enough of the NDC-NPP, and there must be a change. And that is what this alliance is going to stand for. And everybody will come under this vision, a change, a replacement of the duopoly. So I strongly believe that though individuals may have their own identity or agenda, that will not undermine the overall agenda of the movement, which is the things that I've outlined. Replacement to replace the NPP NDC.
Okay, now I get your point. I get the uniting factor there. You have mentioned Dr. Abu Sakara Foster. You have also mentioned Mr. Tremartin, who leads the movement for change, because I know that it's the national interest movement that Dr. Abu Sakara Foster was actually connected with. But I saw a lot more people there. I saw the likes of Odike, others from the PNC and the CPP. Are these political parties, that's a PNC and CPP also? I think PNC is actually what I saw. Yes. Are they officially on board, or it is representatives or individuals within the various groups that are now on board?
Odike and his movement is on board. The PNC gentleman, he's as a vice chairman, he is there as an individual, but with the view of mobilizing the people in his party to be part of it. And also, being the Reverend Minister, and as a statesman, I will constantly play my role of influencing and facilitating individuals and groups that wants to possibly stand for elections to come together under one major umbrella for one common purpose to achieve that goal of replacement of the duopoly. So you saw a number of people, they are all coming under one umbrella, and let's find become the third force as an alternative to the issues we are dealing with. So yes, we will constantly talk to people. I will play my role as a statesman, and I believe that individuals that probably want to go solo, we can manage and then influence them to come together. Because the greater the people come together, the greater it is. And there can be the change that we desire to have. more.
So far, how many groups have now come together? Because it appears to be a long list that you're mentioning now, and the individuals are also, how many groups are now in the Alliance for Revolutionary Change?
I think for now we have about 10 to 12 member groups, and I don't have the document that I can outline their names, and I can mention their names, but about 10 to 12. And there are others who are waiting to sign in. Our job is to cast the net wider and bring everybody on board, including a number of the media houses, other professional groups. So that is where we find ourselves. This is just not a cast in stone, membership group. But at the point, the issue is that the Alliance is making the necessary effort to expand members, bring members, and for one common agenda to pursue the dream of the replacement.
Now, I need to ask you this because as a reverend minister, some will say it is very dangerous to step into the foray where there is heavy partisanship and a contest, which is where really this will be, because the Alliance will contest elections. Are you not worried about that?
I'm concerned about Ghana.
Okay.
I'm concerned about my children. I'm concerned about my grandchildren. I'm concerned about the next generation. What are we going to bequeath to them? The founding fathers bequeathed to us a Ghana that we were proud of. In our time now, we are not proud about the Fourth Republic and the kind of Ghana we see. And therefore, can we all make a little bit of sacrifice to begin to fight for the Ghana we all desire to have? At least before we check out of this life, we should be able to do something meaningful. If we can improve the life of our country, like to become a developed nation, let's create a platform so that the next generation can take up the baton and at least drive this country to become the kind of country we all want to be as a developed nation. So someone should be part of this clarion call. Martin Luther played a role in ensuring that civil rights. Bishop Desmond Tutu played those kind of roles. Religious leaders can be non-partisan in terms of their character and personality. But as statesmen, they can speak for their nation and they can mobilize people to bring the change that their country desires to have. Now I am playing that role, not as a partisan person, but as a statesman who thinks about Ghana, dreams about Ghana, and wants the betterment of the country and the future of our country.
Now, there is a question already out there, which I'm sure by now you should be able to answer. Why revolutionary change? The last time we heard of revolution, it was Rawlings's unconstitutional government time. Why revolutionary change?
Nothing can be achieved in this life if there is not a change of mind and a change of attitude and a change of heart. And where we have gotten to, we need a revolution, a mental revolution, a transformed system, things that can change our thinking, our mindset, our attitude. And revolution means a complete overhaul of the system. So that is the approach. I'm aware that, at a point, people were not too, probably comfortable with the word, because the older generation weren't too pleasant and excited about the word revolution. But for the younger generation, it was appealing to them. But we have to give and take approach. So my revolution is to bring attitudinal change, mental change, so that we can achieve what we desire to achieve. And that is what perhaps I can explain to you.
Now, so it's been launched today. We know your plans of massing up numbers across the country. The big question is, can you succeed where others have failed? There has been so many attempts to have independent candidates come on board. Can you as a group succeed where others have failed?
Well, I think it will depend upon the message, the vision that will rally everybody together. Indeed, if the average Ghanaian feels discouraged, disappointed, discontented, despaired, and have lost hope in this generation we find ourselves, then nothing prevents the average Ghanaian to come together. This time you are not voting for NPP, you are not voting for NDC. Now vote for yourself. How do you vote for yourself? You are voting for yourself by joining a movement that will want to bring the change we all desire to have. So I believe that with that commitment and with that vision and mindset, there can be progress. The group can make an impact. The group can make an impact. It's a matter of beginning it and starting the journey. We are told the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So this movement has been born. We trust that together it will marshal the forces and we can have the change we all desire. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be rosy, but it's possible. In other nations, they have succeeded. We too in Ghana can succeed to bring neutral group of people to provide leadership for our country.
Now, I need to ask you this question too, because it's actually important. Realistically, is it the quest to influence the elections or be a factor in the election or to put up a candidate who will win the election?
Well, to put a candidate that will win the election. And that is what we have. In the unlikely event that the ARC will not win the elections, they can become the kingmakers, and then to decide that the group that will possibly agree to the various reforms and the various things we have outlined, and members will be given the opportunity to make a decision towards that direction. So it is a dream that the candidate will have the edge to win the elections. But in the unlikely event, and of course, what the ARC depends upon or wants to do is to make sure which group will accept the issues that we have on the table to bring constitutional reform, a transformed Ghana, a governance of continuity, and a government of inclusiveness. And of course, we can pursue that and work with that group of parties.
Now, third-party presidential candidates sometimes played crucial roles as kingmakers in two of the presidential elections since 1992. And I'm talking here about 2000 election and the 2008. In fact, the data suggests that third parties need to gain a minimum of combined vote share of 3 to 7% to have a chance of influencing the elections and defeating the incumbents. And since 2000, third parties obtained a combined vote of something below 3% or more. We are talking here about three presidential elections, 2000, 2004, and 2008. Two of these elections led to a runoff and a defeat of the incumbent. The understanding, at least Professor Pesa White puts to this conversation, is that there is still about 27% of our voter population which is completely calling themselves floating voters, which may swing in either direction. Are these the people you are targeting?
Indeed. We are told there's about 20-30% of these voters, undecided voters. It will be the key people that, number one, the alliance will target. And then, of course, if there are others who have already made up their minds, but they are frustrated and they will want to join, that would be great. But these swing voters, the undecided voters, would be the key people that the alliance will focus on, including those that are dissatisfied about the state of affairs, those that are, disappointed about the issues of affairs, those that are discontented about the nature of our governance, those who have given up and losing hope, young men and young women who have no hope in our country. They are the people the alliance is calling them on board. But let's come together, let's transform Ghana for the sake of our founding fathers, for the sake of our founding fathers. Let's bequeath something meaningful to the next generation.
Now, I think this is the key message you are delivering, but the electioneering process mostly boils down to policies. It boils down to many of the things I'm talking about. First, I think you mentioned something in connection with a united Ghana and also a government that is really for the people. What are the key policies that this alliance will be pushing in this election? Do you have promises on the table? Do you have set out clearly the kind of messaging you are sending to the people of this country?
I think the message of Alan Tremartin is the great transformation plan, which is going to be outlined, which has been outlined as to the things that has to be done, and that that's a key message, right? Driving the message. And I don't have all the details with me, but it covers some of the key things that I have shared with you about the government of national unity, all-inclusive governance. It's not about NDC and NPP, whether trade women, trade union, professionals, faith-based leaders, religious leaders, academia, all those who matter, who can be picked and to contribute to national development. This is what the Alliance would work with and encourage that great participation. The government of continuity, projects that have been left from the days of Rawlings up to where we find ourselves. It's all a matter of let's go back and build those projects, all right? Building and strengthening our industries so that we will move from in export-driven, to import-driven to an economy that will export. So basically, I don't have the details of all the great transformation plan, but these are the things that actually covers that.
Are we expecting you to don the shirt of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change and go from house to house campaigning on the grounds anytime soon, Reverend?
I'm not too certain about whether I'm ready for it. We will be donning the shirt of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, which is the umbrella body. Movement for Change is a movement under Alan. And NIM, the National Interest Movement, is also a movement under the ARC. Ghana First Coalition is a movement under the AFRC. So everyone will still have their identity, and they will project the message of the Great Transformation Plan and the support for Alan. So that is what we will do. I think when the time comes, we will probably go.
No, I get your point. I wanted to know whether you will be going around campaigning too. That's all, Reverend. Yes, that's the question.
I am not a partisan person. Based upon my calling and my profession. My profession will not allow me to get into political partisan activity. But as a statesman, I will play my role as a statesman, encouraging everybody to look for the alternative governance system that we are yearning for.
Your church members certainly will have NPP, NDC, and others represented. How did they feel about this bold move of yours?
Well, they know over the years I've been preaching and talking about an alternative movement. And so, again, it's not a political activity.
Okay.
The Alliance for Revolutionary Change is not a political party, but it is a movement of a third force which we have all been calling for and been praying for. And that is what I have preached over the past 6-7 years. And if today people want to come together under that umbrella, I think it's an answer to prayer. And so we will explain to our people that it has nothing to do with political party activities.
Reverend, I am most grateful to you for your time this evening, and I wish you the very best. Reverend Dr. S.N. Mensah is more recently left the role as the president of the Full Gospel Ministry, but he is with a group that's already joined the biggest clarion so far seen in the Republic of Ghana of third parties and independent people who want to remove or replace the duopoly of the NPP and the NDC. Do you think they will succeed? After this break, we shall be having some analysis with the political scientists about the chances and the prospects of this Alliance for Revolutionary Change. You're welcome back to UPFront. My name is Raymond Darko. I just got by was a conversation with the former president of the Full Gospel International Ministry, Reverend Dr. S.N. Mensah. The crux of the conversation is earlier today, the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, a grouping spearheaded by Alan John Kwadwo Tremartin, who until recently was a leading member, contested the NPP presidential primaries and moved on to now form the Movement for Change. Now, the Movement of Change actually has attracted, we are told now, about 12 more institutions and other groups, which was launched today as the Alliance for Revolutionary Change. The main agenda is to annex political power, removing or replacing the NPP and the NDC duopoly. But will they succeed where many have failed? I'm being joined by a political scientist, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Doc, you're welcome to UPFront.
Yeah, good evening, Raymond, and good evening to your viewers.
I understand that a leading member of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, Dr. Abu Sakara Foster, also joins us via phone. Dr. Foster, you're welcome too.
Thank you. Dr. Sakara.
Yes, Dr. Sakara, let me start from you because there's a question I'm asking, and I've just gone through a bit of the data when it comes to political parties in the Republic of Ghana. Now, third-party presidential candidates, we know that played crucial roles, especially in the year 2000 and 2008 elections. Indeed, the data suggests that for third parties to gain a minimum of votes that's supposed to make an influence, it should be between 3% and 7%. We know what it takes to win the election, so that's not in dispute at all. But since 2000, third parties obtained a combined vote share of 3% or more in the elections 2000, 2004, and 2008. And two of these led to the runoff and the defeat of the incumbent. Now, one should be clear in their minds on what is the agenda of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change. Are you targeting an absolute win in this election? Or it is starting small, making sure that at least you influence who gets to the Flagstaff House next?
Well, I think the first point is that your comparison with previous alliances may not be absolutely on point because this is a deliberate alliance. Previous alliances have come about after second round when people have not won. It's an alliance of convenience. This is an alliance of conviction where we have a common cause that has brought us together well before the election, and we are now pursuing or prosecuting that agenda. So obviously, we're going to do better because we have worked deliberately towards it. That's one thing. The second point is that
Sorry, it appears I'm having some difficulty on the line to Dr. Sakara. No, okay, you're on. I can hear you now. Dr. Sakara, you're making the point about the second point.
Yeah, I think the second point is that the starting point is also different. Already you can see from some surveys that the presidential candidate on his own is attracting maybe about 7% of the vote. And that is more than all the parties that are not NDC or NPP have ever attracted in an election. So if that is the starting point for the campaign on his own before the alliance, obviously he's going to gain more support there. And furthermore, you have about almost 40% undecided at this time. If they're undecided, they're not really ready to commit to the duopoly. That's why they're undecided. So again, we're going to get a bigger chunk out of that. So if anybody's election, it depends on how much resources there is to commit to it. There's certainly a determination, a willingness, and the capacity to prosecute the election to victory, but it will depend on resources available and also, of course, ultimately on how the election itself is conducted. But nobody enters a race not to win. Okay. So from that point of view, I said the objective will be to win. But if it so happens that there's a second round, then we also position ourselves accordingly to get the results that we want out of it.
If I may, please give me a second. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, the clarity here is that this is a union of conviction, not of convenience, which distinguishes this particular alliance for what has been the previous practice in times past. This is also one element that's likely to make it succeed. Do you, from your distinguished political science experience, agree?
To Dr. Sakara's view, but I disagree because we know that in this country, smaller parties always struggle to win political power. We have never seen, to put it bluntly, we haven't seen any of the smaller parties winning power, at least in the Fourth Republic, no. So if you look at even the previous elections, all that we have seen, even all the smaller parties, the average have not gone up to even 5%. So to talk of having more than 50% is going to be a miracle. But nobody goes into election and then will tell you that, yes, I'm there to lose election. They know that as for winning the presidential election, they are far from that. But what they can do, and that is a possibility, that when they are able to work well and they are able to organize themselves, having resources, they have strategy that resonates with people, and they have messages that deal with the problems of this country. If all things being equal, then they are likely to push the election into a second round. If you look at the giants who are leading the parties, for instance, Mr. Chiramatin, he has a number of following, and so is Dr. Sakara and the rest of them. At least these two are giants. They'll be able to pull some people along. It is a fact. And if that works well or in tandem with the effort of other political parties, then the best they can have is to push the second election to a second round, where they become very influential actors within the process.
Doc, I did hear you say, Dr. Sakara, I did hear Mr. Chiramatin say clearly that you are creating a new political culture, ushering in a new type of leadership, visionary, competent, accountable. Also mentioned implementing transformational policies in all sectors, making private sector the real engine of growth of the economy, and building a united Ghana. Are these the pillars of your campaign? What is the unique selling proposition of the Alliance for Revolutionary Change, which will make you excel where others have failed? Dr. Sakara, can you hear me? Yes, let me come to you because I was asking the same question to you, Dr. Kwame Asante. The thinking is that political parties and alliances of this sort come with a very special feel. He's basically saying this is a very new terrain and we are going to do something different. I did mention the things that they are promising to do in the Republic of Ghana. Are these revolutionary enough to make the masses of this country move away from the NPP and the NDC? And I'm talking here about the messaging.
Yeah, messaging, you and I know, is critical in every election. And this election is not going to be exceptional. We are going to expect from the political actors messages that resonate with people, messages whose foundation have something to do with the problems of the society, and messages that give hope and address the problems that we have in this country head on. Yes, they need to be able to get these basics right if they really want to survive in the election. Obviously, they are not going to come out with weak messages. Already we've seen some of the ideas they are throwing out and all that. But the issue is that, these things influence people to the extent that it would take them away from their dominant political tradition. That, yes, they are likely to have some people, but to take the bulk of the people from the party, I'm afraid that will not happen. The reason being that if you look at this country, more often than not, you realize that political party traditions have been so strong and dominant in the efforts of or within the political landscape, let me put it that way. So an independent actor or person who want to contest these established tradition, then you need to come in with extra, ideas, extra solutions, and the rest of them. Yes, it is true that the giants, these two that I know them very well, Alan Chematin, Dr. Sakara, they are men of ideas and all that. But as to whether they will survive the strength of these entrenched political traditions that have ruled this country for a number of years, that is a daunting task for them.
Now, there's a question on the minds of many people in Ghana. You know that Dr. Sakara is really from the CPP stock, so one will think that he's center-left. Mr. Chematin is from the NPP, so many would presume automatically that he's center-right. Now, I've seen a lot of others being thrown in there. More recently, I heard the pro-Marxist grouping in the Republic of Ghana, the Fighters Group, yes, the Economic Fighters Group, Ernesto Yeboah's group, equally throwing its weight behind this. Will this amalgamation of different ideological leanings work? Will they survive till at least the election of this time?
Ideology is a problem in this country. If you look at, apart from, say, the CPP and then the NDC, who have come out clearly with the ideological positions relative to governance in this country, the NPP have not been able to articulate clearly what their ideology is, with the exception of recent times that I know that they have made efforts to let it out of what their main ideology is. And if that is anything to go by, if that is what we are using as a standard, how, in the first place, do you think people have, learned about this ideology? They know it so well that they have internalized it within their system to be able to follow the party all along. Those who are floating voters, the people I'm referring to, you realize that they don't know much of the party in terms of what their ideologies and all that, but they follow them based on the economic needs that they have, and for which reason they believe that a party should be able to handle that for them. That is what pushed them. They also believe that there are certain lingering challenges within the country that require serious solutions to deal with, i.e. we are talking about what corruption and a fight against it. These are things that people are looking forward to. And of course, due to our, developing nature, we expect that people will see developmental projects littered in the nook and cranny of this country. These are the things that quickly get voters attracted to and then push them into voting one direction or another. If you want to straight the conversation, then you are talking about records, contest of what ideas and referendum of your work. What type of work can they show as entity, a new entity that is there for the world to do, to see? These are things voters who want to relate to and then make informed choices based on this. Do they have anything that they can show that they have? The established political parties, the dominant one, of course, NDC-NPP, have over the years, at least in this fourth republic, demonstrated that they have something that they can show. What can they, compare with them in order to convince people to vote for them? That is going to be $1 million question for them.
That is also the question I want to ask you, Dr. Sakara. The question about messaging. Which messaging are you likely to push out there that's going to drive you the votes, make people change their mind from the NPP and the NDC?
Okay. I think, first of all, the premise of the analysis has to be changed. We are proceeding on a linear path. This is what it has been. It will never change, and therefore we expect this result. If that were the case, duopolies all around the world would have never changed parties. And yet, if you look at the most established duopolies, the parties that they began with are not the parties there now. So at some stage, something happened to change. What has happened usually, and if you look at the wages law, is that when you have a democracy, it descends into two democracies which become stagnant over time. And then eventually there is a friction or fracture in one of them, and then a reconstitution. You may end up with two parties again, but not the same two parties. So I think political scientists have to look at it beyond just NDC-NPP. NDC-NPP will not be there forever and ever. Someday, one day, it will change. Not necessarily because of us, but because that is the normal trend of things. If you go by that issue, then you ask yourself, what is it that causes change? What is the tipping point that brings about this change? Then you begin to look at the actual conditions that exist now. Whereas previously, you could get away with making all kinds of promises which you will never deliver on. People have seen this over and over again, and you're at the point now where there's a great deal of frustration. The living conditions in the country are very hard. Everything is very expensive. Ordinary people are having to fork out more than 60-70% of their income on food, little left over for rent, and it just keeps going. You cannot assume that Ghanaians are oblivious to all of these things and will just go out and vote for NDC-NPP. It is that kind of assumption that results in the surprise that changes a duopoly. So we are saying that the reference point for what has happened before in Ghana is not the same, and it has moved on. The Ghanaians are still the same people, but the reference point for the election is not the same. And there's a great deal of dissatisfaction with the duopoly as we know it. There's a lack of responsiveness, even in this election, in this administration. How many times did people ask for the Minister of Finance to resign? Nothing happened. How many times did people ask the price of government to be cut down? Nothing happened. How many times have people complained about the galamsey? Nothing happened. So are you telling me that Ghanaians are so unconcerned that they will continue to live in a duopoly that is totally unresponsive to their needs? I don't think so. I think that Ghanaians are now gotten to a stage where they are going to make some choices. And all they need is an alternative. And this is what the Alliance for Revolutionary Change is offering them, an alternative. Yes, we don't have the operational resources to the extent that the two established parties have, but there is different strategies to mobilize support at the grassroots level, and we have taken the less expensive, less costly strategy to mobilize resources at the grassroots level. If we can mobilize enough of those resources to do that, I think that there can be a big surprise in this election. Now, whether or not it's an outright win or it is a runoff, I don't know. But I suspect if we can mobilize enough, any of those can happen. Secondly, I think that the discussion about messaging, the messaging is really a message that is effective is what responds to the needs of the people now. And all the issues that we are talking about are the things people are really feeling. The hardships they're going through, the lack of opportunity they have, and giving them hope that there can be an alternative. Now, if your message assumes that you need to respond to them and how they feel, but you can just tell them anything and promise them anything and get away with it, then you will live with the consequences of that and see if they will take it a second time. So I think that we are underestimating Ghanaians by a long shot if we think that what has gone on before can simply carry on undisturbed because Ghanaians are sleeping and they are not responsive to what has been happening in the system.
I am grateful to you, Dr. Sakara, and also to you, Professor Kwame Asa-Asante from the University of Ghana, Political Science Department. Gentlemen, many thanks to you for joining us on UPFront tonight, and also for you out there who joined us right from the beginning of this conversation. It started Reverend S.N. Mensah. I am also grateful to you for your time with us this evening.